Okay, welcome to this explainer. Look, I want you to treat this as a calm, professional space today. Let's just take a breath. If you've been carrying this really heavy weight of overwhelm lately, you are absolutely not alone. We all know that incredibly comforting, kind of seductive trap of telling ourselves, you know what, I'll just do it later. I mean, it feels so relieving in the exact moment you say it, doesn't it? Well, consider me your coach for the next few minutes. We are going to gently, but very firmly, untangle all that overwhelm and actually architect your very next steps.
So I want you to think of that one specific thing you keep telling yourself you're going to do later. You know the one. Got it in your mind? Okay, good. Now I want to gently challenge you here. What are you actually avoiding? Because I'm going to suggest that later really isn't a scheduling issue. You aren't lacking time, right? What you're experiencing is actually a completely unconscious defense mechanism. Your brain is literally trying to protect you from something, and it's using the concept of time as a very convenient shield. And that brings us to this incredibly hard-hitting truth from Danielle Body's framework. She says, later is not a time, it is a psychological escape. Just let that sink in for a second. When we say, I'll do it later, or I just need a little more time, we're almost always avoiding discomfort or uncertainty, or maybe the fear of failure. Postponing a task is how we protect our current identity from having to be imperfect. It is this brilliant, but honestly completely paralyzing escape hatch from the discomfort of growth. I mean, it's the exact reason you suddenly decide you absolutely must deep clean the fridge or alphabetize your spice rack instead of just writing that one difficult email.
What happens is we fall for this thing called the illusion of future readiness. It's a total trap. This is the lie we tell ourselves, that waiting around is somehow going to magically provide us with future confidence, future clarity, and the sudden burst of motivation. But real life, it's an action-based reality. Confidence and clarity are exclusively created through action, right now, in this moment. You literally cannot think your way into a state of readiness or into a whole new identity. Alignment only becomes a visible, tangible reality when you actually execute on it.
So let's kind of look under the hood here at who is actually making your choices today. Take a pause and ask yourself, who's driving the bus in this exact moment? Are you operating from identity one, your reactive self? Because this version is entirely driven by your current mood, your inherited fears, and those super familiar avoidance loops. It's the path of least resistance. Or are you actively choosing identity two, your grounded self? This is that productive, aligned version of you that's driven by conscious choice and real honesty. Misaligned action almost always happens because the wrong identity grabbed the steering wheel. Nothing is going to change until you consciously activate the correct identity first. And once you do consciously choose that grounded self, you really have to embrace this one core truth. Behavior reinforces identity. See, we don't just take actions to cross things off some endless to-do list. Every single action you take is literally a structural brick that reinforces who you are becoming. By stepping out of that avoidance zone and taking honest action, you are providing the exact structural building blocks needed to make your newly chosen identity completely believable to your own nervous system. Which brings us to the most powerful operational tool we have to interrupt that whole psychological escape of later. Are you ready? Here it is. Ask yourself, what would the next 5-minute action look like? As your coach today, I'm giving you this exact question because it is beautifully engineered to completely bypass your brain's natural resistance to starting. It yanks you right out of that paralyzing fog of someday and drops you immediately into your very next, most accessible reality. Now, you might be wondering, why only 5 minutes? Well, it's simple. Large actions create incredibly heavy friction. They trigger cognitive dissonance and, yep, massive avoidance. But small actions? They're brilliant. They engineer a completely low-resistance entry point. They create immediate flow, they generate momentum out of thin air, and they build your new identity so quickly. Honestly, the smallest action taken immediately is infinitely more powerful than the absolute perfect plan that just gets delayed again and again. In the broader context of building personal alignment, this immediate little step functions as a micro-behavior practice. To prevent yourself from getting overwhelmed while you're building this new identity, you just use this tiny 5-minute window to practice one single small action that your future aligned self would consistently do anyway. I like to think of it as an identity rehearsal. You're taking one tiny step to systematically install the micro habits of your chosen identity, completely short-circuiting the trap of avoidance. So what does a 5-minute action actually look like in the real world? It's so much simpler than you think. It could literally be just writing one confident email, It could be sending a text to set a firm but gentle boundary. Maybe it's just preparing 5 minutes early for a meeting instead of rushing in hot. It could just be opening a blank document or writing exactly 2 sentences of that massive project you've been dreading. By focusing purely on what you can execute in the next 5 minutes, you systematically install these micro habits that your future self just normalizes, making this new identity behaviorally real.
Once you take that tiny action, you enter what's called the velocity loop. You move from an insight to capturing it to that micro action and finally to an embodied identity. But listen up, because there is a major catch here, and it's known as the 72-hour rule. It basically warns us that an insight is just this really short window of neurological plasticity. If you have an aha moment, but you don't apply it with a visible action within 72 hours, your neural pathways weaken right back down. Your old identity restabilizes. Insight without immediate action doesn't change you, it just becomes intellectual clutter. Look, we're human. Motivation fades, and those old reactive habits are absolutely going to try to pull you backward. That is exactly why you need accountability anchors. These are just simple, structural support beams to keep you steady on the path. And no, they don't have to be complicated. Set a 10-minute timer on your phone. Slap a physical sticky note right in the middle of your monitor. Put a dedicated time block on your calendar. Or just use a simple grounding phrase you can repeat to yourself like, I only need to begin. These anchors bake behavioral engineering right into your identity work, making sure your newly chosen self stays fully present even when life gets super chaotic. Okay, finally, we arrive at what is probably the most overlooked layer of real transformation. It's called somatic sealing, because transformation isn't just a mental exercise. It actually lives in your nervous system. Think about it. If your mind chooses courage, but your body is physically slumped in a state of defeat, the alignment is totally broken. So let's practice this together right now. Take a nice slow breath, drop your shoulders down away from your ears, unclench your jaw. I want you to physically step into the shape and the posture of your grounded future self. You literally have to inhabit the physical presence of the identity you're choosing if you want to seal it into your body. All right, we've built the architecture here. You know exactly what it is you've been avoiding. You've consciously chosen your grounded identity. You understand the total magic of a low-resistance entry point, and your body is now physically primed for it. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative question. What is your next 5-minute action? Please do not wait for some imaginary future readiness. The exact moment this explainer ends, I want you to go execute that one micro action. Your aligned self is waiting for you. Go begin.